Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Nicco Leonne. Nicco is not your typical CEO. He's an entrepreneur who has built a thriving consulting business while living and traveling across some of the most beautiful places in the world with his family. With a background in global consulting and an MBA from NYU-Stern, Nicco is passionate about helping entrepreneurs regain control of their businesses while living their dream life now, not someday in the future. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Why Wait, which empowers business owners to overcome plateaus, streamline operations, and rediscover their sense of freedom. Hi, Nicco. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Sonia.
So let's get into our conversation. You have a fascinating story from working at a global consulting firm to running your own consulting firm while traveling the world with your family. That's got to be tough. Can you share what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Kind of a long story, but
Mm.
like you said, started my career in consulting at Capgemini. I was in New York City, consulted for a couple really big companies up there. One of them was Brooks Brothers, a clothing company, retail company. They hired me. They ended up hiring me and a couple people from my team full time to just go in house there. And so I got to, those first two experiences were like, I understood what it was like to work for massive companies, giant
Mm-hmm.
consulting firm, billion-dollar apparel company. Um, I got my MBA at NYU-Stern at night while I was working at Brooks Brothers. After that, I raised some money, put it into a software startup. Um, that we grew that for a couple years, ended up exiting it. We just sold the IP, didn't make any money off of it. But it was a huge learning experience for me of
Mm-hmm.
what it's like to run a super small company in the startup phase. And so it was like I had the giant company view, I had the startup view. And so then my next company that I joined was about $3 million in revenue. It was an internet infrastructure company in North Carolina. And I joined that company as an executive, and we proceeded to raise private equity funds, win $1 million in grant funding, and really grew the company a lot over a four-year period that I was there. And at that point, that was when I kind of realized, okay, companies of this size, this like 3 to 15 million in revenue, that's my sweet spot. I don't want to go too big, I don't want to go too small, but when it's that sweet spot, it's like you kind of have the best of all worlds.
So you emphasize living your dream life now rather than waiting for retirement. How did this philosophy shape your entrepreneurial journey and the lifestyle you've built?
Yeah, well, I was, like I said, living in New York for a while at the beginning of my career. And if you ever live in New York, it's like extremely career and money focused. And you can get really far. You can learn a ton
Mm-hmm.
in a very short amount of time, but quality of life is pretty awful. Um, when you have the other option of like living on a Caribbean island. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right. And so as I, started to think about, what do I want to do when I leave New York? you know, I, I I've always been trying to plan for, what if I just didn't wait for retirement to
Mm.
enjoy beaches and beautiful places around the world? Is there a way for me to work it into my life now? And so I've done that. I run our consulting firm remotely. There's obviously a ton of value I get out of that, different cultures, foods, languages. I think what you do give up is you're just not going to grow your business as fast as you otherwise could if you were just like in a city center, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
And and I'm fine with that because I'm playing the long game. I mean, we still grow every year, but along the way, I'm doing a bunch of pretty cool things.
So tell us a little bit about what your consulting firm does now.
Yeah, and it's shifted since we started it, because we
Okay.
just kind of, yeah, we try to, see what the market wants and react to that. But where we are now is, we do what we call organizational development, which basically just means we build businesses. So companies hire us when they're, reaching some sort of a plateau, or it's like they're stressed out all the time. They don't know how to get to the next level. That's kind of when they
Mm.
come to us. And we help them to build an internal infrastructure so that they can get to the next level. So that means we make sure everybody's aligned on company goals and strategy. We make sure they've got the right people in the right seats. We make sure we're measuring all the right things. We make sure the operational tools and processes are what they should be. So it's kind of like full scale management consulting, I guess you would say,
Mm-hmm.
in order to help businesses grow. And as we've done that, we've also found this other niche where we're starting to do post-merger integration, which is kind of similar to what I just described, except it's
Mm-hmm.
taking two companies and fitting all those pieces together as you plan to go forward.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of companies, a lot actually grow by acquiring other companies, right? So is that what you mean by the merger?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, a couple of our clients, as we've been helping to grow them, they've reached a point where, we're starting to look outside and think about, maybe we should acquire a couple of competitors, or in
Mm.
some case, like we have a client who is a distributor, and they have sub distributors who are customers of theirs. And so there's a great opportunity to just acquire a few of our customers, cut out that sub distributor middleman, and now we're just serving our customers directly. And
Mm-hmm.
so as we've started to sort of guide them through that growth journey, we've realized, hey, we also need to help with integrating the acquired company into the existing operation. And so now we've built out a whole, offering around post-merger integrations.
So what are some of the challenges that you face in having your company be 100% remote?
Well, we can never really be as hands-on with the operation.
Mm.
Um, what we really focus on is finance, which we can do remotely, HR, which for the most part we can do remotely, and then operational improvement. But
Mm.
with all companies, there is always this, the day-to-day operation, and
Yeah.
sometimes our clients have issues in their day-to-day operation, and if I was there on site, I could get in there, get into the, nitty-gritty details and solve the issue like very quickly. Without being on site, it takes a little bit longer. You have to have more meetings. You have to kind of give them the tools to solve it themselves, or we
Mm-hmm.
have to hire somebody and bring them in to solve it. That's the biggest gap that I see, I think.
Okay. So every founder faces growing pains. It's not just your clients, I'm sure. Can you share a pivotal moment in your entrepreneurial journey where you overcame a significant challenge and how did it shape your perspective on resilience?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started our consulting firm, it was 100% finance focused.
Mm.
And we started to grow in the direction of, fractional CFO with like bookkeepers on the team. And so it was basically hire us, we'll come in, we'll be your, full finance department. And we learned a couple of things as we did that. Number one, it was kind of annoying to manage a bunch of bookkeepers on our team, and so
Mm.
we didn't really love doing that. And number two, our clients always needed more than just that. Like
Mm.
the finance really tells the story, and it allows us to like uncover the issues that our clients are seeing. But then they had to solve those issues, and so we realized like we really need to pivot. We need to add on an HR, team. We need to add on an ops team, and so we've sort of grown in that direction. And it was kind of challenging to make that pivot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more consultants, a lot more, areas of the business that we have to think about. We've got to constantly meet and integrate all of those things together. But we like where we are now.
What is with the clients that you work with, what is like, is there a common theme in their struggle that you find, or is or does it vary?
I think the common theme is always that the CEO, or maybe there's a couple partners, they're sort of like at their wits' end. Like that's why
Okay.
they come. That's why they come to us, and that, that I guess that's a symptom you would say, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's the main problem. I don't know, but as we dig in, we've worked with companies that are really cash tight. And that's why they're at their wits' end, because they're having a hard time making payroll and doing those sorts of things. And so then that's a very specific type of engagement, as opposed to other clients we've worked with where they're actually growing sort of uncontrollably and cash flow is
Mm.
really strong, but they're at their wits' end because it's like they haven't built out the internal systems and team and whatever to support that level of growth that they're seeing.
Yeah.
So the issues we have to solve can definitely differ, but the underlying reason they come to us is like, we don't know what the hell to do next.
I mean, like it's so nice to grow, and but there's all, it's what they say like about growing pains. Like it's nice to stay small, but it's also nice to be able to scale and grow, but then you grow and it's like, am I really prepared for this growth?
Yeah, I've got a friend, consulting buddy of mine, who always says, new level, new devil. And
Yeah.
I think that's so true. It's like, yeah, you can grow and you can make more money, and that's awesome. But your issues and your challenges are also, they're still going to be there. They're going to be different. They may even be bigger. And
They
so,
probably will be bigger.
yeah, I mean, and that's why, my firm, we're very careful about our growth. Like we're actually not out there trying to 10x our business every year, because we want to keep the main thing, which is explore the world, travel, have a good time while we work and help businesses.
Yeah. I mean, I always have people reaching out to me that want to be on the podcast, and they're always like, we help businesses go from here to six, seven, eight figures. And I'm always like a little hesitant with those because I'm like, that's great, but like, what is it going to take to get there? And how much do you have to give up from your personal life, from your work life balance to reach that number? And then once you reach a certain limit, how, is it enough, or do you just want to keep going higher and higher?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's why whenever we start an engagement with a client, the first part is strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing that sort of like influence the strategy is, hey, owners, what is your goal for this? What is your goal for your life? What do you want to get out of this? And
Yeah.
if they say, we want to sell this thing in 5 years, which I've had people say that. It's like, we want to get
Yeah.
out, so we want to just grow it and sell. Then it's like, okay, do you want to sell for like as much money as possible and you're willing to do whatever it takes to reach that? Or not so much. And then we've worked with other clients where they're like, we just we just want the headaches to go away, but we want to run this thing forever. And then for those people, we may not need to be as aggressive with growth. It's more about just like fine tuning things. So I'm with you.
Right.
It's You got to start with like, what do you want out of this?
And have some sustainability too, have like a period where things are sort of calm. I call them calm before the storm. And it sort of helps you prepare for when the storm comes your way. You've at least had a little bit of downtime to just like focus on the problem areas.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So you have a book called Why Wait? Could you share a bit about it and how it has helped business owners regain control of their business and lives?
Yeah. So, I mean, the book is not out yet, but it's close.
It's
And
coming out, okay.
it's coming out. And the book is, I mean, it basically takes these ideas we talked about here, puts it into book form. The book starts with kind of a description of like, hey, business owners, what you should really be thinking about instead of, can I scale my business, is what do I want my lifestyle design to be? How do I want my business to
Mm,
fit into my life? And, the words why wait, like what that means is why wait for retirement to have the life that you want? Let's pull it forward. Let's design your business in a way so that you can kind of like semi-retire and fit those bucket list activities into your life today.
yeah.
And then the book goes into, finance, operations, some marketing stuff, and all these different levers that you can pull to get your business to a very, very flexible place where you can then take time away from it, travel the world and hit your bucket list.
Awesome. Many founders struggle with finding just their true calling. Sometimes a lot of founders go into something because they're passionate about something very specific, but then there's others that are like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm not really sure what my calling is. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs who feel stuck or uncertain about the direction of their business or life?
Man, that's a tough one. I think one of the realizations, I guess, that I had early on, because I think a lot of young people, it's like, they don't know which direction to take their career, right? That you think back to when you were in college and you were like, I don't want to
Yeah.
pick a major, or I don't know what job I want to do after. Um, and I think I spent a lot of my early career trying to put myself into an industry that would
Mm.
fit me. And
Ah.
and my conclusion, I think, is that it's less about an industry and it's more about the day-to-day work that you're going to be doing. And so it's like, if you love problem solving,
Mm.
there are many, many industries where you can get a job or start a business where you problem solve every day. If you're really good at taking a lot of different information from different people and data sources and figuring out like what is the key insight here. Like some people are very good at that. You
Mm.
can do that type of work in many, many industries. You can start a business around that type of work. Data analytics, right? So I think my advice to people would be think about like what you're really, really good at, like what activity you're really, really good at and that you like doing and you could see yourself doing for a long time. And then think about industry after that. And you can jump from industry to industry as long as you're really, really good at that activity and you stick true to that.
Do you believe that entrepreneurship is for everyone?
Um, I guess not, but I wish it was because I mean, entrepreneurship for me at least is, what drove me towards it was like a true disdain for anyone ever telling me what to do.
Mm.
And I don't think everybody feels that level of like rejection of authority like I did.
Yeah.
Um, if you do feel it, you definitely need to be an entrepreneur because otherwise you hate your life every day that a boss tells you what to
Yeah.
do. But I think other people go into entrepreneurship for other reasons, um, and I guess at the end of the day, it's not for everyone. Everybody always talks about that person who just wants to like go to work and collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
I don't really meet those people very often. I don't really know who those people are. I think everybody has like an idea, or a dream or something that they want to start, something they want to build. And, it's probably just the reason they don't do it is maybe they don't know how, or jumping off that cliff is scary, or whatever the case.
Hmm. So, is there a downside to working for yourself?
Of course, there's a downside. There's
I
always,
want you to say it.
there's, there's always trade-offs. I think what you just described, the stress, starting a company, you don't know if it's going to succeed or not. Maybe you got to like really, penny pinch for a little while. Maybe you've got to go to friends and family to raise some money. That can be really scary, especially
Mm.
when you lose their money, which I've done before. That's not fun. Um, so there's a lot of downsides to it. I think but you've got to weigh those downsides against the downsides of working for someone else. And for me,
Mm.
it was very obvious because of that, what I described, that I could not handle somebody telling me what to do.
Yeah.
I would rather take all the risks in the world as long as it was on my shoulders. But for a
Right.
lot of people, when they weigh those two options, it's not worth all that risk.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you get to like travel the world and be with your family and, you know, this week you're here and next month you're there. So there's definitely like you have a lot more freedom.
Yeah. But the lack of security, I think, is the main thing, where it's like,
Mm.
we are very good at the consulting that we do and the work that we do. Are we very good at like sales and marketing and bringing in new clients?
Mm.
It's not what we focus on, because what we actually focus on is deepening our engagements with our existing clients. And so that's
Yeah.
that's how we grow. But if we were to like, oh my God, we lost half of our clients tomorrow for whatever reason, like being an entrepreneur is really scary in that moment, because you build your life around that money coming in. Then if it's not, you've got to like quickly pivot and figure it out.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, I
but
think that's the beauty. Like you're constantly pivoting as well, right?
that's true. And I think for other people who work for someone else, you also have the risk of getting fired. Like
This
there's
is
not total
true.
security there.
No, I guess there's no real security anywhere you go. But as an entrepreneur, you can build that security and at least you know what's coming in your way and you can also prepare for worst case scenarios. Like if you lose a big client that's been with you for a couple of years, what are you going to do to go out and get new business? And if you, I'm sure that if you ever got to a point where you really needed to pivot, you could establish yourself somewhere for a little while until you fix those problems and then you can continue with your lifestyle, right?
Yeah, I think once you have been an entrepreneur, I think it's not that difficult to get a job at a company. Like if you had to
Mm,
in an
true.
emergency, you're like, you know what? I just need to go get a job and get a paycheck while I figure out my business. It's definitely possible. It's not that hard actually, but it's kind of not a cool thing to do because this company
Yeah.
hires you and it's like you don't even plan on being there for very long. So I don't recommend
Yeah.
that, but it is a good like ripcord if you need that parachute.
Yeah, for sure. So traditional success often involves sacrificing personal time and professional growth. How do you define success and what role does resilience play in achieving the balance?
So I think success is it starts with figuring out like what you stand for and what you want in your life.
Mm,
And then anytime you're working towards that, anytime you make a decision that moves you further in that direction, you're being successful. Anytime you move away from it, you're not being successful. And so, a lot of your life goals will be business related, but a lot of them won't be. I mean, one of my, recent goals over the past couple of years has been like I really want to get very fluent at Italian. And I studied it in college. I know it pretty well. I can definitely go to Italy and be just fine, but I want to be like a native, like natively fluent. And so I carve out time every week, a couple times a week to meet on Zoom with somebody in Italy. We do conversational courses, whatever. That is something that I care about. And so I have to be working towards it. Otherwise, I'm not being successful. Even if my business is growing, if I'm not meeting all those, life goals that I have, I wouldn't call it success.
yeah. So how do I know, I mean, I know a lot of people just in general, not just entrepreneurs, but specifically entrepreneurs, I feel are more towards what I'm just going to talk about, but like taking on more than you can handle. Like I know entrepreneurs that have like three, four, five businesses and they're all at the startup stages and they're not really where they should be. And they're taking on that and they're taking on this. Even sometimes I find myself doing it and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How am I going to take on another project right now? Like, does that mean I'm going to have to work Saturdays and Sundays in order to be able to handle that? Like, what is your advice to people that are sort of like they're just in the hustle and they're not really perfecting one thing. They're just doing a million different things and just trying to get by.
Yeah, my recommendation is don't do that.
I don't think some people can help it.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, I've been in that position before too. Like, early on in our consulting firm, we're kind of like trying to create it. We don't really know what our, offering is exactly. And so we're saying yes to all these different like ideas and partnerships and oh, let's go put on this event and oh, let's try this marketing tool and let's do this thing. And so you end up just doing a million things.
Hmm.
And, in the aftermath of all of that, I realized that a lot of this stuff was not working. And if we would have just focused on one thing, which was like, let's get our offering dialed in and serve our existing customers really, really well. Like once we started doing that and saying no to everything else, that was when we really started to grow and we started
Mm.
to get like a very strong offering and our customers loved us and we got like in really, really deep with them. And then a referral came from those customers because we were doing such a good job and you start to grow that way.
Yeah.
So my example right there was about just even within one business, all the different things that can distract you. But
Yeah.
to your point, yeah, I know of people out there who are doing three, four, five businesses, and I just has that ever worked? For some people, I guess it has.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the odds are super low that you're going to be successful with that approach.
Yeah. So some of the companies that you work with that, one of the things you mentioned is when someone hits a plateau. So can you give us an example of like a customer that you've worked with that they hit a plateau? What was that plateau and how did you help them overcome it?
Yeah, so we have a customer right now. It's an engineering firm, and they did a little over 3 million this past year in revenue. The plateau that they were hitting when they came to us was it was really that like what I described to you earlier, where it's like they're at their wits' end. So there's
Okay.
three partners that run the company. Their sales had been taking off. So tons and tons of customer calls coming in, a bunch of projects that they were starting. These people actually, this was the only company they'd ever worked for. So they didn't have like outside business experience. They started this one
Mm,
and they grew it for 15 years, and now they were hitting that plateau at around 3 million in revenue. The plateau was really them not knowing what to do next and feeling like every day they were falling further and further behind in their client deliverables. And so we needed to look at their team. We needed to map out roles and responsibilities, who's doing what. Is this even the right organizational structure? Do we need to hire certain people? Do we need to promote certain people? So we had to do a lot of that planning. We looked at their software tools and their processes, the way that they run their projects, and we realized we needed to do some software tool enhancement. So one of our consultants came in, enhanced some of their software tools. We re-engineered a few of their processes. So it's all of that stuff together to get them where they're able to handle all of this
mm,
influx of customers. But when they came to us and they were at their wits' end, when you're at your wits' end, you're thinking of like quitting or
yeah.
right. And so a couple
Or
of the
firing
partners,
everybody.
yeah, exactly. Nobody's doing anything. Yeah. And so um, a couple of the partners were thinking about like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, guys.
Mm,
And so the strategy, when we kind of laid all that out, we figured out their goals. The strategy is they want to sell in 5 years. So now we know that. So then what are the
yeah.
things we need to do in order to sell in 5 years so you guys can be out? And we mapped that out, we mapped out all 5 years. And then we said, okay, now let's just focus on the things for this year and let's build like a Gantt chart, project plan to get those things done. And seeing that map calms them down, and they realize like,
Mm,
okay, there is an end in sight. There is a way to get this company where we want it to be. And we've worked with some companies in the past where we make that 5 year plan and they want to sell at year five. And then we get to year three and we fixed a lot of the problems. And now they don't even want to sell in year five anymore. Right. So that can change too.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And just before we run out of time, I want to run this question by you. Like one of the biggest pains that I find just in most general businesses, but I think startups struggle with this the most is sales. Without sales, you don't have revenue. How do you work with companies that don't have that much experience in building sales teams and hiring salespeople, or they've hit a plateau in their revenue to figure out how they can have more business coming in? What kind of strategies do you do with your customers?
Yeah, so that piece we're not super focused on, the sales and marketing, but I've got a
Yeah.
couple really great partners that I'll just bring in to our projects with us if we need a sales and marketing piece. Um, and those guys are really good at coming up with some sort of tactics around bringing in more flow of customers.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the part where I would help companies to increase the revenue would be more on like the acquisition side of things. So it's like,
Yeah.
let's raise money, let's acquire a couple companies. The finance side of growth is where we'll help out.
Cool. Love it. So my last question for you is what practical steps would you recommend for entrepreneurs facing burnout or feeling like they've hit a plateau to help them regain momentum and rediscover their passion?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I have a whole book about all the steps you can take.
Yeah.
Um, but, I guess the first step would be take a step back, think about what your goals are, what you want out of your life. And if you feel like you are too strapped on a daily basis, take a hard look at like what you do on a daily basis, or let's say a weekly basis, and create a time map basically of
Mm,
what your week looks like. So record the time that you spend over the course of the week on each type of activity. And then you can label each type of activity as like, is this something that I am uniquely gifted to do? Or is this something that like somebody else could do?
mm,
And as you start to map that out, what we often find with a lot of owners is over half of their time is spent on things that somebody else could easily do. And so
mm-hmm.
then there's a virtual, a VA, or hiring an executive assistant, or some sort of delegation, or even hiring a consultant to come in and take a massive piece of your week off of your plate. All of those things can be super helpful to just give you time to breathe and like reset before you plan your next steps.
What should a CEO or a founder really be focusing their time on for those who don't know?
It's all, yeah, it's all longer term stuff. So like
Right.
we always talk about, there's three different types of activities. You've got your generalist activities. That's like project management, creating invoices, basic stuff anybody can do. Then you've got your rainmaking activities. That's bringing in new deals. Then you've got your architect activities, which is like the CEO should spend most of their time on architect activities, which is looking
Okay.
out at looking out at the market. Where do I want our company to be in 3, 5 years? How do we have to shift and change in order to get there? What are some partnerships that I can create? I can go out and be external facing and find some partners and go to some industry events and get our name out there and try to bring in really big deals that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they should spend most of their time on. And then a little bit of extra time on the rainmaking activities. So you don't really want your owner to be in charge of sales, but you may need to pull them in on certain large deals. And that's totally fine if they spend, 5 hours a week on sales. But everything else should be longer term, partnership focused, talking with competitors, talking with partners, vendors, building those relationships, having lunches, doing podcasts, and getting the
Yeah.
word out.
I love it. Well, Nico, thank you so much for joining me today. This was very enlightening, and I'm sure people will love listening to your advice. And I really appreciated having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sonia. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you. I want to thank Nico for joining me today and sharing his insights, experiences, and wisdom. Your journey is a true testament to the resilience and adaptability required in entrepreneurship. And your perspective on living a balanced, fulfilling life is inspiring. Thank you. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.